the Johannesburg Mayor, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, has committed to giving feedback on the Soweto Electricity Crisis. This is going to be within 14 days. That has been prescribed to her by the people who marched to her office, the residents of Soweto, saying they've had enough of not getting responses, and they've handed over a memorandum to the mayor and her team yesterday. Let's get more on this, and we are joined now by Dr. Trevor Ngwane. He is from the University of Johannesburg, but he also doubles up as part of the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee. Dr. Ngwane, thank you very much for your time. I want to start with the question around what you think the march is likely to produce with the number of memoranda. I'm told that it wasn't just about electricity that the people went to her office for, but a whole host of other issues. But you are specifically here on the electricity element. Is that march likely to produce any positive results for the people of Soweto?
Well, thank you for having me, Xoli. The problem with the authorities, they only move, they only do something if you create problems for them. So I'm hoping that the mayor will feel the fire beneath her feet and perhaps put pressure on Eskom to do a few things which might, alleviate the crisis in Soweto.
Yeah. You have done quite a lengthy study on this alongside your colleagues at the University of Johannesburg. I want to ask you this simple question. As you were doing your research on this, do municipalities provide indigent households? What am I talking about? People who are pensioners who say, we receive social grants to the amount of about 1,800. We simply cannot afford to pay for electricity. Do these municipalities give free electricity or water to such households?
Xoli, the answer is no. In theory, they should. But remember, in Johannesburg, there was a policy to actually give everyone, in fact, free basic electricity, a certain amount. I think it was 50 kilowatt hour per month. And then the mayor then, Herman Mashaba, scrapped that. And then he came up with that idea that people must queue at his office and apply for indigence. The problem, Xoli, with indigence is that they demand so much from you, including even, in the old days, coming to your house to check how poor you are. Can you see? Yeah, so this actually discourages people. It's a lengthy bureaucratic process, and in a way, it takes away your dignity, because basically you must, plead poverty. And even if you get on the indigence list, you must do that every year.
You see, the reason I'm asking you these questions then, Dr. Ngwane, is that it takes us back to that very initial question I asked you about whether this is going to produce any results. The people were in high spirits yesterday, and there was much gusto to think that you're going to get something out of this particular process we are embarking on. And for you to tell us that, any person who is listening today, having been part of that march yesterday, certainly they're going to be disappointed. Is it not that nothing can be done by municipalities, needless to say, the one in Johannesburg?
Well, they can do something, but as I started off myself, Xoli, that, the people in power, the rich and the powerful, they only move if you make problems for them. So what I can say to the people who are marching is that we must maintain the pressure. Can you see? So, when the mayor says, give me 14 days, she just wants breathing space to find a way out. So if after 14 days nothing happens, she'll do nothing. I'm telling you, she'll do exactly nothing. Well, so in a way, we need maybe another march in 14 days to make sure that we push her to actually do something.
Yeah, and I wonder what that might be, Dr. Ngwane, because clearly then the residents and whoever is leading them, this is a push for a political solution as opposed to, I suppose, a practical, lasting solution, particularly for households who cannot pay.
Yes. So the real issue is that although, we talk about Soweto, sometimes I meet people in the street and they say, hey, you love Sowetans. But actually, this is happening everywhere, in the country. One day, they were marching the other day in KZN, Guguletu, they march about the same thing. Throughout, you can go to Limpopo, Northern Cape, rural areas, people are suffering from the energy crisis. And in fact, as you refer to our report, the issue is that those who suffer the most is people who live in black working class areas.
Yeah.
So we really need a massive solution, to address everyone's needs. Of course, maybe Soweto can lead the way, but we need a national solution.
Dr. Ngwane, let's move the conversation then to the culture of non-payment. There are people who have the means to pay electricity, and it's not confined to Soweto, as you correctly say, but they simply hold the attitude that we're not going to pay for this electricity. How do you solve this particular element? Are there efforts to educate communities about why it is important to pay for what you use? Because as a result of that, you have overloaded substations that are collapsing every hour.
Yes. So, when it comes to payment, there's a customer and a provider. So customers pay for a good service. So unfortunately, if you live in a black working class area, you're getting very, very poor service. If a transformer or a substation needs repair, it explodes, you can wait weeks, even months, living in darkness, whether you are paying or not. So this is very discouraging. So what popular education can you come with when you are busy telling people you have to pay, and then the lights go away for the next 3 months? So that's the crisis, Tony.
Yeah.
You see. So in a way, Eskom is undermining its own strategy and its own vision.
And that's the question, Dr. Ngwane. I actually put this question to the spokesperson of the mayor. This was just before the marchers got to her office. And I asked, have you ever had a conversation with Eskom about why load reduction is implemented in township areas? Because these are obviously predominantly black areas. And after a bit of a back and forth, there was the admission that, well, there are those who don't pay, and therefore I suppose this is a way to punish those people. But how do you punish the entire community when there are those around this household that simply does not want to pay, who are paying for their electricity? Why must they suffer? And the response I got, by the way, was that, well, we've never had this conversation. So how are you a responsive city then? How are you a responsive municipality?
Yeah, exactly, Cody. So that's why, we came up with this concept of energy racism. So this is just a continuation of attitudes and policies which simply undermine, the black working class. They feel that, remember apartheid, these people can work, can live in a hostel, in a compound. These people can live in a 4-roomed house. These people can live on pap and water the whole month. So that is the thinking which must stop. So energy racism must stop. People must be treated equally. As you know, Xoli, ordinary people, they know this. It's not just electricity. If you live in a rich suburb or a middle-class suburb, you just enjoy more services. That's it. It's like that. Even the street lights are always on. If one goes off, someone comes and fixes it quickly. But if you live in another area, especially black working class areas, townships, shared settlements, rural villages, then you are treated with disdain. You know, your needs are not put at the forefront.
Well, I suppose to close our conversation, Dr. Ngwane, the question is the overall picture, therefore. Just last week, the Auditor General gave us a depressing outlook of the finances of these municipalities and how they simply don't know how to get their books in order. There are those who can't even submit the paper to say this is what we are doing in terms of fixing these finances. Is that picture, that depressing picture of the financial state of municipalities, is that an encouraging picture for those that want services extended to them, or are the communities like the one in Soweto going to be in this pain for a much longer time and perhaps things are likely to be worse?
Corey, I'm afraid, you know, I have to be honest with you and your viewers. You know, the ANC is irredeemable. You can't redeem it. So the big guys there, they are focused on self-enrichment, making profits. And their behavior affects and influences people lower down in the system. So even a technician is not focused on making sure that the lights are on, but they are thinking, how can I make a quick buck? So there is an overall corruption of, you know, the state in South Africa. So the only solution really is exactly to have those matches to maintain the pressure. I would dare say that only a government controlled by the people, by the working class, by the poor, can actually do what is necessary. With these people in power now, the aspirant black bourgeoisie, white monopoly capital, I don't think, you know, we'll ever find a solution.
I'm tempted to ask a political question, as I never resist this. So you've spoken about the ANC that is irredeemable. The Johannesburg municipality is under a coalition government that's led by the Democratic Alliance. Are they likely to bring any measure of hope? We know that the best performing province and its municipalities who are constantly getting clean audits, it's the Western Cape. That's not my language, by the way. That comes from the mouth of the Auditor General.
Yeah, they might introduce a measure, a degree of efficiency. But if you look at the Western Cape, how are they serving the masses? How are they serving the working class? They concentrate on serving, you know, the rich people who live in Constantia. Yes, their books are fine, but the services are still, you know, infused with a kind of racism.
Dr. Trevor Ngwane is from the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee.